Hello and welcome back to another video. So I put out a little poll a few weeks ago asking what video you guys want to see, and it was tied between 10 indie games I recommend and 10 more or 15 more hidden gems for the Xbox One. So considering I've already done a hidden gems video for the Xbox One, I thought I'd roll out a 10 indie games I recommend video, and I will do another Xbox One hidden gems video at some point down the line. So anyway, today we're going to go through 10 games, indie games I recommend. So just to clarify, these are not my top 10 indie games. That would be a very different list. But I've got loads and loads of indie games that I would recommend to anyone as long as you're interested in those genres. So this will eventually probably be a series of videos. So these are just 10 games I recommend, not necessarily the 10 best, but all ones that I would recommend playing. And I use indie loosely. Some of these might technically not be indie games. They might be published by quite a big developer. But by indie, I just mean kind of smaller games done on a lower budget, just not your AAA, AA kind of standard games, smaller low budget games, even though some of them technically might be published by big publishers. Anyway, that's all of that out of the way. Let's get started. So first up, and as I say, not any particular order, just 10 that I recommend. First up we have SuperHot. So this is an incredibly good looking, stylish kind of first person shooter game. But the main kind of unique point of this game is that time only moves when you do. So if you just let go of your controller, time won't move. I mean, technically it moves very slowly. But it effectively doesn't move if you're not moving. So you're in kind of first-person gunfight. Sometimes you don't have a gun and you can punch people or grab an object off the ground and throw it at them. But the whole time, time only moves when you do. So you can pause, have a look where your enemies are, have a look. You can see their bullets going through the air, and you can plan your moves. And then once you start moving again, everything moves at full speed. So it's kind of like a combination of a first-person shooter and a puzzle game. I really enjoyed this. It's incredible. As you can see from the footage, the visuals are stunning. It's got a really unique and cool, interesting design aesthetic. And one of the best things about this is once you complete one of the stages, it will do an action replay at full speed. So you're effectively creating kind of like movie action sequences. And it just is a stunning, fun, interesting game to play. It came up with some elements that I hadn't seen in other games before that I found really enjoyable. It's got kind of a kind of underlying story running through it, but I wouldn't play it for that. I'd play it for the action. It's a really good game. Moving on, next up, something a bit different, the Artful Escape. So this is very different to SuperHot, but I played this because it was on Game Pass, and I saw a couple of videos from people I watch on YouTube kind of saying it was a pretty decent game, so I thought, why not? And as you can see from the gameplay, I don't think I've actually got gameplay of this because it was on Game Pass and now it's left, so I couldn't play it to get gameplay, so it's trailer footage. So I would definitely recommend, actually, for this one, watch this video first, but then go and watch some gameplay of it, some other people's gameplay, because I don't think the trailer's going to do it justice. But this is more of a story-driven adventure game. It is technically a platformer, but it's very easy. But it's basically a psychedelic musical journey through the cosmos. I don't know how else to put it. You play this guy who's a musician who hasn't got any confidence in himself as a performer, and it goes on this kind of crazy mystery journey through the universe, and you meet with aliens and go to different planets and all kinds of things. It's amazing. But it's all musical based. So when you're going through these levels, the platforming is very easy. You can't really die, to be honest. So it's more of kind of like a story game, going through the story. But as you're jumping and platforming things, you can strum your guitar, and the music's always playing, and you have an impact on kind of the songs and when the solos and stuff kick in. And every time you strum your guitar, something visual happens in the background, like lights will pop up or something will happen in the background. It's really interesting to watch and play through. It's nice to have that connection to the music and what's going on in the scene. Yeah, there's a great variety of kind of locations as you go through. All the characters you meet are kind of really interesting and cool. I got attached to quite a few of them. And I'd recommend this as just, it only takes, I can't remember exactly, but like 3 hours or something around that mark to play through. So I'd definitely recommend this if you have been playing some kind of quite intense games and you're looking for something just to kind of relax to. You're not going to have to worry about dying or difficult sections or anything. Just enjoy it, play through it, and have a lot of fun. And I was blown away by how much I actually enjoyed this game. By the end of it, I was kind of taken aback. I was like, oh my god, this has actually been a really, really good time, really good experience. But definitely worth it. I'd recommend. Next up, changing track again. So you'll notice I've tried to put in quite a wide genre of games in this, so hopefully there should be something for everyone. So watch to the end. So golf with your friends. So this is like a crazy golf, adventure golf. There's lots of different names for it, isn't there? Mini golf game with a huge amount of different 18-hole courses. So loads of variety. They obviously get gradually more difficult. The gameplay I've got is from quite early on, but it gets far more elaborate and quite difficult later on. You've really got to kind of practice and hone in your distances. But it's just a really good, fun golf game. You can play it solo. The footage I've got is solo because I just hopped on to get some. But it's really, clues in the name, it's meant to be played with other people. So you can play online just against strangers, or you can set up your own lobbies and play with mates. When this first came out, there was a few of us that played it. It was probably only for about a week. We jumped on, but I had a lot of good fun with this, playing through like a couple of golf courses a night. And it's really funny. Like if you're playing with your mates and one of your mates hits it in the water, and it's just funny. It's like the same kind of banter you'd have if you actually play mini golf in real life, almost. So yeah, I'd thoroughly recommend this. There's a lot of courses, I say, and they're all 18, so there's hours. And if you do enjoy this type of game, there's hours and hours and hours of entertainment in this. I did think at one point I was going to go for the 100%, the 1,000 gamer score, and I started making my way through all the levels. Trying to get like below par and do everything you need to do, but it was a good game, but it was taking a long time and I was starting to get bored, so I fell off that. But maybe one day, when I went back on to get the gameplay, I did actually play a bit more after the gameplay just because it's quite fun, so I might one day go back and do that. Next up we have a very different game, and I hesitate to even really call it a game. So the game is Late Shift, but it's effectively an interactive movie. So it's live action, so it's all real people who you can see from the footage. Again, I think this one might be a trailer because it was on Games with Gold or something. I don't have access to it anymore. You're playing through a movie, so you will watch the scenes, and then at intervals, every couple of minutes or so, you'll have a decision point, and you can choose what your character does to develop the story. And this leads to true branches in the story, actually. So it's not like some games where you can make decisions that doesn't really impact it. This has huge changes in the progression of the story, what direction the story goes. So it's one of those that I enjoyed my first playthrough. I thought it's basically just like watching a movie. It's a semi-decent movie, decent acting. It's quite well shot. But then I don't often do this with games, but I did actually go back and play through it again, making completely different choices, and the differences were huge. So I think there's 7 endings, and I've got 3 or 4 of them. But yeah, it's a game that's worth playing through multiple times. So even though the run through is only about 2 hours, you get more than that because you play through it multiple times. The actual story is set in the UK, and it's like a crime thriller. The character that you're kind of following, works just as like a security guard in a underground car park, and you get dragged into this kind of setup and this heist that goes on, and then it all goes wrong, and you're involved with some bad characters, and kind of the proverbial shit hits the fan kind of happens, and you make your way through it, and it's kind of a crime thriller action thing. There's some violence and things in there, and yeah, it's just a really, I know it's been done before, but this came out quite a while ago, so I think a lot of them have been done since this, but it's been around for a long time, this kind of genre. But I really enjoyed it. It's something slightly different. Again, it's one that if it's, and this is one of the things I use indie games for a lot, is kind of a palate cleanse if you've been playing some either very long grinding games or challenging games, just to hop onto something that's quite easy and short, just to get that kind of dopamine hit for completing a game. This is one that I'd say is worth playing through. It's definitely not like on my top 10, 20 indie games of all time, but it's a good fun, like a 7 out of 10 kind of game. Next up, we have Prominence Poker. So even for people that aren't poker players, or even for those that are kind of hardcore poker players who only like playing for real money, I'd say this is worth giving a go, because I play poker in real life, online and stuff, for money. and go to poker tournaments and stuff. But so this isn't for real money. It's just a kind of computer game. But it's great fun. It's adept at kind of all the mechanics and things. It actually feels like you're playing poker. It's a bit slower than online because you've got all the animations and things, but I quite like that. And you can kind of do all the customization and things for your avatar, make them look how you like, buy all the clothing and stuff, and you buy the clothing and accessories and table items and things with your winnings from the poker. So there's kind of a semi-tangible reward for winning tournaments. You can then deck your guy out in like an expensive suit or some crazy wacky clothing and stuff. And it's got great online, so there's ranked and you can play through online tournaments or cash games. But one of the best things about this game for me, the best memories for me, was during the pandemic when in the UK we were locked down for months and months and months, because it's a free-to-play game. I should probably mention that. A group of us, 6 of us, created a league where we played every Thursday night for all of lockdown, so for months. And I set this up and I had a spreadsheet, and we played for real money, just fivers in, £5 in each week, and then we just put it into a bank. We just bank transferred people each other the money, and we did a league and we played. So it was on this, but it was kind of real poker because we couldn't meet up in real life. And I've just got real fond memories of having a weekly poker league on this game, and we were all kind of leveling up our characters and getting different outfits and doing all kinds of stuff, and just the banter going on. So I've got good memories from it for that. But it's a really good game if you're learning poker or if you just enjoy playing poker without the pressure of actual real money. It's a very competent, adept poker game. So I should mention as well, so one of the things I like about it is there's a variety of locations you can play in. So you can play in like the back room of a laundrette, like a seedy underground game, all the way through different locations up to like the high roller suite in a casino. So you've got that kind of variety to go through there as well. But yeah, just a very competent poker game. Next up, we have a game that would actually make my top 10 indie games of all time, and it would be very near the top, and that is Inside. So I had an amazing time with this game. I can't recommend this game enough. For those that have played Limbo, so I've played Limbo as well. It's a very similar thing, with a slightly increased colour palette, not too much though. So Limbo is black and white. This has some subtle colours and it's got a bit of red and things in there. But it's just a visually stunning and impactful game. So it's a side-scrolling platformer with some really well thought out and designed kind of puzzle sections to it. Some of the puzzles can be quite difficult, but they're not the kind of puzzles you're going to get stuck on for like hours and hours. You'll get stuck for a couple of times, but there weren't any that I kind of got stuck on for longer than a few minutes. So for me, it's that perfect level of difficulty where you can keep making progress so you don't hit kind of a roadblock. It's got a very kind of intriguing and mysterious story. I won't go into any more on that now. I don't want to spoil anything. It's one of those that you've just got to play through and experience it. But there were so many moments during that playthrough where I was just like, oh my god, what is going on? This is incredible. And it's thought-provoking because the genius of this game is that it can have such an impact, and there's no dialogue. There's not even a UI. This is what you see on the gameplay now. That's it for the whole game. And it's just all told through visuals and kind of sound design and everything that's going on the screen. And it's an incredible game. When I finished this game, I just kind of sat there for 10 minutes thinking about it. I went onto YouTube after a while, like looking up kind of spoiler reviews, other people's thoughts and stuff on the game, because I was just thinking about it and trying to process it. And it's just, yeah, it's a really good game. Like, away from the story, as I said, the puzzles are really good, but there's just the cinematography of it. The camera work is incredible. It always looks stunning. I took so many screenshots playing through this. The death animations, because you will die a lot, even though the puzzles are manageable, you'll still die a lot making your way through. And the death animations are gruesome and kind of very creative as well in their own way. There's loads of different ones. So that was quite fun just seeing them. Some of them are quite disturbing, really. But yeah, can't recommend this game highly enough. If you have not played it, if you have not played Limbo, play Limbo and then play this. Because this is like an evolution, in my opinion, of Limbo. Limbo's a great game, but I'd say this is like a notch higher. Right, next we have Hotline Miami, and this is, unfortunately, again, I don't have gameplay of this, so this will be a trailer because it's on my Vita. I own this, and it's the only game I've ever actually beaten on my Vita. It's a bit of a tangent here, but I every now and again I think, oh, I really like handheld gaming. I'm going to buy a handheld thing. So I bought the Vita, and then it's like it takes me a few weeks to realise actually I don't really like handheld gaming at all, and I never touch it again. I buy loads of games for it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to play through all these games, and then I play for a few weeks, and then I put it down, and I just never get back to it. I did the same with, I don't think it's to hand, I don't know where it is, Ambernick. I've shown it in a video before. I played my Super Mario 7 Golden Coins, whatever his game on it. It's like a modern version of a Game Boy emulate, and you can put all the retro games on it. So I've got a huge library of SNES, all the retro consoles on there. And when I got it, I was like, yeah, I'm going to play through all these games. And I haven't been back. I haven't touched it in over a year. It's just, I think I just need to realise I'm not a handheld gamer, which is one of the reasons I don't have the Switch, even though I know you can dock that. But anyway, getting back to Hotline Miami, completed on the Vita. But this is very, very different to Inside, the previous game. It's like a high octane, fast, twitchy, kind of top down, I don't know what you'd call it, like action game. It's one hit kill on your enemies, and you only take one hit to die as well. So you will die a lot, a huge amount. So it's kind of like each level is kind of a puzzle in its own right, because you've got to work out how you can get through the rooms in kind of which order you need to do things and which locations you need to be without dying. So it's kind of like a puzzle game as well. But when you die, you instantly respawn, so there's no loading at all, which is great, because if there was, I don't think this game would be viable. But it's a very satisfying game, especially when you actually make your way through a level, because you will die many times, unless you've played through the game before, you're just naturally gifted at these type of games. You will die a lot of times making your way through each level, so when you actually finally make it through, it's very satisfying. The music, the soundtrack in this game is incredible. It's one of the very few games where I have actually listened to the soundtrack kind of regularly outside of gaming. I've got a pick, and I chose quite a few songs from the soundtrack that I liked, and I made my own little playlist on Spotify. And I listen to it still to this day, many years after beating the game. And I know a lot of people listen to a lot of gaming soundtracks, but I don't really. But this is one that I do. The story is very strange. It's kind of like surreal. I'm not 100% sure if it's real or if you're like dreaming or tripping. It's very psychedelic and surreal and strange. You never quite really know what's going on. But it really is just about the gameplay. The story adds a bit to it, but it would still be a great game without the story. Yeah, so a game for people that like that high-speed action. It is quite difficult. So one for people that aren't as big a fan as those relaxing games I've mentioned. If you want the action, the difficulty, and you haven't played this one, then pick it up. And speaking of difficult games, another one which would actually make my top 10 list, no doubt, of top indie games, and I've cheated a bit because I've just put the Trials series. So Trials HD, Trials Fusion, Trials Rising, Trials Evolution, all of that series, apart from one where they had unicorns and things, don't bother with that one. But all of the core Trials games are 100% worth playing. So you'll see gameplay, but you use moto dirt bikes, basically side-scrolling through levels, and you've just got to make it to the end of the level as quick as you can with as few faults as possible. And what makes this game so great, apart from the level design, I think it's just the physics. They have absolutely nailed the physics of the bike, and what impact your accelerator, brake, weight leaning and everything has. And there's such a monumental difficulty curve on this. On the first few levels, you basically don't need to do anything, just hold the accelerator, it's very easy. But to get through the later levels, you have to be able to finesse the bike to such minute degrees that you have to kind of practice, basically learn how to weight shift, learn just feathering the throttle and small subtle nuances to be able to get through the levels. And I love that. It's such a rewarding game, and it's one of those games where there were levels that I was struggling with on my first kind of cycle through. I'd go to the really hard levels, come back to those levels, and I would breeze through them without any issue. So I love that sense of progression and feeling like you're getting better at the game. Some of the later levels, so I've completed all of the levels in all of these games, but I'm not one of those people that's gone and like platinumed all of the insane tracks or anything. That's just would take too much time for me. But I do love these games. The level design is incredible, and they've progressively ramped that up through all of the games. If you haven't played this series, any of them, I would actually recommend going all the way back to the beginning and playing Trials HD, where the levels are just set in a warehouse, effectively. and then progressing through, because you'll see the progression and the new levels released in each new game, as they've kind of upped the budgets and what they can do with the scope of the levels, will wow you even more. If you start at the most recent one and go back, I think it'll be more difficult. But yeah, they do crazy things, huge, massive open levels, loop-the-loops and flying through the sky, and such creativity in the level design. It just makes it really interesting, especially the first time you're playing through each game, like what's the next level going to be. And they play with kind of colour palettes, and like the achievements are always really good because they force you to play the games in different ways and explore different parts of the levels and things. Just really, really, really good series of games, which I would definitely recommend. So back to kind of more leisurely games, but no less impressive. So this is The Forgotten City, which I played, was it early this year or last year? Recently, anyway. There's a review for it on my channel. I'll put a link either up here somewhere if I remember, or I'll put it in the description below. So it started out as a Skyrim mod, developed by one guy that did like incredibly well just as a Skyrim mod, and then they got the funding to actually turn it into its own standalone game. So this is one that was on Game Pass, which is one of the reasons I love Game Pass, because there's a lot of these games I just wouldn't play without Game Pass, and I had a great time with this game. But yeah, it's a time loop game, so basically you find yourself in this ancient underground Roman city that you can't escape from, and the core loop is there's a rule. I've written it down. What is it? I've forgotten what the actual rule is. Many will die for the sins of the one. So there's a community of people living in this underground city. If anyone commits a sin, they will all be turned to gold, basically. You'll all die. And when this happens, so if you commit a sin or something, there'll be a warning and you have to basically escape. Whatever happens, you start the time loop again. And basically your objective is to break this time loop and escape. And it's really well done. There's lots of twists and turns to the story. The writing is really well done. There's not really much in terms of like gameplay. Like you're walking around. There is actually some light combat. You get a bow and arrow at some point, but there's not much more to it than that. But it's basically a puzzle game. In each loop, you're unlocking new things, trying to work out what you need to do, talking to different people, unlocking secrets, and helping people. And I don't want to spoil anything more than that. But it's just, if you like that kind of genre of kind of time loop games, this is a really, really good one. Done on an incredibly small budget from a Skyrim mod. But yeah, this is another one of those that I played through in a couple of days. I couldn't put it down once I'd finished. I'm still thinking about it now a couple of years later. It's a really, for me, was quite an impactful game of just how clever it was and what it did. So yeah, I'd recommend it. Go and pick it up. And then finally, is that 10? I think it's 10. If not, I'll have to jump back on after this. But finally we have, and again, not in any order, so this isn't better than the others. It's just one I'd recommend. It's Shadow Complex Remastered. So this is I didn't play the original. I'm not even sure when the original came out. I don't think it's like an old retro game. I think it was on the Xbox 360 or something. But this is a remastered version on the Xbox One. And yeah, it looks. I don't know what the original looked like, to be honest, but it looks really nice. It plays really well. But it's a Metroidvania game, mainly set in this kind of secret underground base. And I don't very often. I play a few Metroidvania games, but I don't very often finish them. Sometimes I get a hankering for like a platform, and I'll jump onto one. But I very, very, very rarely finish a Metroidvania game. With this one being a rare exception. I played through all of this. I completed it. Loved my time with it. I don't know what it was about this game that made me drawn to it more than some other ones, but yeah, I think it's a really solid game. It's got it's like a spy espionage kind of story. You're in this underground base fighting the bad guys that are trying to destroy the world and all that kind of stuff. And it's got voice acting. Nolan North actually voices the main character, which I thought was crazy for kind of an indie game. So the voice acting for him is really good. It feels like you're kind of playing Uncharted. But the platforming, the combat, everything, you will be doing a lot of shooting, and I quite like the way they did the shooting. So you can shoot. It's always in like a 2D plane, but you can shoot across the screen and you can also shoot into the distance. So that gives it a bit of depth. And it's the typical Metroidvania game. You're going to be doing a lot of backtracking. There'll be sections you can't access your first time round. You'll get some upgrades. You come back, which I normally am not a fan of. I mean, even in this, I'm not a fan of it. I don't like the backtracking element to games, but this game had enough going for it that I didn't mind doing it, and it was quite satisfying getting the upgrades and getting into new areas of the map. And yeah, I think this is definitely an underrated game for its genre. If you're a fan of Metroidvania games and you've played all like the big ones, and you haven't played this, then I'd jump in, give it a go. So that is 10 indie games that I recommend. So hopefully there's something for everyone in there. There's a lot of different genres I've covered in there, but all worthy of a play, I would say. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know below any indie games that you would recommend. Especially hidden gem ones, or ones that are on Game Pass or something that I can hop straight into. That would be amazing. And I've got a huge list of indie games, which is why I didn't do a top 10 for this. I've got a list of probably 40 or so that I recommend. So I will do more of these videos in the future as well. So thank you for watching. Please, if you have enjoyed the video, drop a like. And if you want to see more of these, consider subscribing. But I hope you all have a great day. And yeah, on to the next one. Goodbye.